rushing women's syndrome is something that did you coin that term? And now everyone uses it. Can we talk a little bit about specifically that book? I know you've written 14. We could be here for a long time and I wouldn't get tired talking to you.
Me either.
Why did you write that book? What inspired you? What were you seeing with women that inspired you to sit down and coin that term?
It's not a medical condition, obviously. It was just the name I gave my book, and it was based on my observations of my female clients at the time. This actually is astonishing. I wrote it in 2011, which feels like 5 minutes ago to me, but apparently that's about 14 years ago. I was very naive. I thought it was a glitch in the matrix. I thought, it's just, what's happening right now. Everyone's just sped up. Where I saw patients, they'd burst into the office in a hurry and really distressed. And I used to think things had gone dramatically wrong, but it was often they'd tried to cram so much into their morning and then they ran late and couldn't get a car park. I can just simply describe it as a heightened state. And it was very new. People hadn't really behaved like that before. Obviously, people aren't going to see people like you and I if they feel fabulous. They come because they've got digestive system problems or reproductive system challenges or headaches or they can't sleep or whatever. So I'm very aware when I was still seeing patients, I was seeing a biased group of the population. It was like an escalation in how intense the gut problems were, the period problems were, more and more challenges with thyroids. I was just seeing this almost like what I thought was a perfect storm. And like you, I ask why. I want to get to the heart of absolutely everything. And I could see that essentially the constant relentless production of stress hormones, because it was communicating a lack of safety to this person's body, which wasn't the truth. And I think we need to find out ways to communicate the truth to our body. But it was essentially saying you're not safe. And so the HPA axis, the hypothalamus, was saying to the pituitary, honey, tell all of the glands that you're responsible for that we're not safe here. And everyone was in kind of overdrive. And then there were obviously consequences to that. So rushing woman syndrome was really the description of the cluster of symptoms that wasn't a disease, but it was what living with the constant relentless production of stress hormones was doing to us. My work has 3 pillars: biochemical, nutritional, and emotional, or you could say mindset. And in that third pillar, the part in the book where I talk about sort of our mindset, we stress because we care. It comes from a really beautiful place. If you didn't care, you wouldn't stress. But beyond the caring, if you sort of peel the layers back, we can also see that we care what other people think. And so I described a concept that I called forward words. And I used to sometimes say to my patients, it's as if you've walked through the door with this word on your forehead, and it's a trait, a behavioural trait that you really want other people to see in you. I get people to do that exercise. How do you need others to see you, and name those traits? And obviously the way you want your mother to see you might be different from how you want a colleague to see you, so you might need a few different lists. But how do you need others people to see you? And for rushing women, their reply was, I need to be seen as kind, thoughtful, selfless. So they were already those things, but they were prepared to sacrifice their own health to demonstrate to others that they were those things. Other people will say, I need to be seen as competent, hardworking, efficient, dedicated, loyal. And so it doesn't matter what our traits are that we want others to see. We have them and they're unique to us, but you want to know what yours are. So then the next time you're stressed, pause and consider, am I perceiving someone is seeing me in the opposite way to my forward words? And most of the time, the answer will be yes. And I ran some focus groups before I wrote The Invisible Load, which was my 2019 book. For the youngest group, they were aged 18 to 25. By far and away, their top 2 stresses were body image and social media. And when I share that with older audiences, they don't understand how social media can be a stress because they use it to catch up with their friends who live in England, or I watch wombat videos. I think wombats are hilarious. So it's like entertainment. So how is that stressful? It's not. Right. But for younger people, it's a mechanism through which they seek approval. Not all, I'm generalising, but some of them do.
Definitely how they're seen and how they show up.
Whereas for the 35 to 55-year-old age group, it wasn't the top one, but a common stress was running late. Yeah, sure, we might be running late because we're going to a conference and we don't want to miss the first speaker, but we often get stressed about running late because we're worried what the person who's going to be on the receiving end of our running late is going to think of us. And so the difference with getting to the heart of that is, firstly, you can see that you're not actually stressed in these examples. You're not actually stressed. You're worried what someone thinks of you. And that can change then how you communicate. If you run late for a meeting and you've sat in traffic and thought, yes, I am worried that my boss or my colleague is going to see me as inefficient or lazy or not punctual, whatever it is.
Disorganised or.
You could grab them at the end of the meeting and say, hey, look, sorry I was late. All sorts of chaos broke out at home this morning. I do my best to not let that interfere with my work. It's important to me that you know that I care very much about my job and I do my best to be a hard worker and efficient. What are they going to say to you? Oh, you're fired. No, they'll be like, thank you for being so vulnerable. And we get the connection we seek with others when we are vulnerable like that. And also think about what the rest of that day is going to look like. You've spoken what you were concerned about. So now you can just go about your day in your ordinary, hardworking, efficient way. You don't go into overdrive trying to prove to those people that you are that. Because when we go into that overdrive, we go home after a day like that and say, it was really stressful today, when it wasn't. We did it to ourselves. That's a long answer to your question. But
that's great. That's great.
That's what that was about. And I was wrong. It wasn't a glitch in the matrix. It's only sped up since rushing woman syndrome in 2011.
I mean, I know when I first started in clinic and I was seeing all the fertility issues that we were seeing, I started asking what is happening, why? Now, this is 20 years ago. It was not the same. So even for someone that's listening now, it's possibly difficult to understand. No one was asking why. When I pulled everything away, it was modern lifestyle, not just chemical exposure and things that had made their way into our bodies, but it was burning the candle at both ends, things that we now know logically are stressful, but the flow-on effect that was having to women's fertility and menstrual cycles specifically, and now we still see it now, but I do think there's more conversation around it, was crazy. And then it never occurred to me. I was like, why is this happening? So I set about, really getting into it. And I was like, oh, it's just modern lifestyle. Crazy. I would say the first step is being able to recognize the feeling.
Yes.
Because then you can actually, I say to patients, I can't get you to do something if you're not conscious about how you're feeling about something. So to your point, if someone's feeling like they've let someone down or it's a stress, right? They're feeling stressed, but if they look at the reason why, then they can actually do something. They can have that conversation, or maybe it's just a conversation you have to have with yourself.
Exactly.
Right? And then you can reframe it. And then the other question I have is the flow-on effect of not addressing that just keeps on showing up everywhere, right?
It does. But then I feel that we just blame it on modern life and then we just say, well, it's just how life is now. And I'm trying to help people pierce that. There's very real and genuine stress going on in the world. There's very real and genuine stress going on in people's lives. But there's also a huge amount of stress we create for ourselves because of how we think. And that's the part we can change. So when I'm talk about stress like this, that's what I'm talking about, the stuff we do to ourselves. And so instead of just labeling it as stress, I love it when people get curious about what leads them as an individual to produce stress hormones in the first place. And that's why something like that forward word technique can be really helpful, because you'd stop seeing it as, oh, I'm just stressed. No, I'm worried what that person thinks, or I've been burning the candle at both ends. I need to change that. Why are you doing that? We're essentially saying I'm prepared to sacrifice my health in the service of others, but it's kind of not service when we do that. It's servitude because we can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
So it's and that conversation has shifted, I think, a bit.
I agree. That generation, though, I don't know what that is, like 30, 45, maybe even older, there's that real service to others that really runs strong still. And then if that's what you've seen your mother do, you do, it's very hard to disconnect from that. I shared the other day on social media, I had 24 hours and I literally was like, facial, massage, like all of the things. And I was like, once upon a time, I would have been like, I'm not sharing that. People will judge. And I was like, actually, if I don't do those things and have 24 hours to reset, I'm good for no one. I'm responsible for people's livelihood. I have a team of 12 people I have to pay wages for. I have to show up for patients. I have to show up for my family. If I don't do these things, then it's a disservice to everybody.
Yes.
And really reframing that. But it takes time for us to reframe that when we've learnt and seen our mothers really sacrifice.
When we've witnessed that, we make it part of our worth, and it's the disconnect from that. I think you can really feel it in yourself when that act of service comes from a very genuine place. And we need that. The world's going to fall apart if we stop caring and stop contributing. But I think we can also feel it when we're doing it out of obligation. We often do that because we've connected our worth to that's what we perceive as service or being selfless. And so it's disconnecting that and connecting it to the things that we value a lot, like it might be family or it might be lifting heavy things, because I know you're relishing that right now. Yeah. So it's being able to perform those things that support your health now and into the future and your longevity, all of it. So it's getting some of those new sort of brain patterns, I think, firing for the version of us that's going to go into the second half of our life.